Hi, everybody. Tracy here, and this is our second rendition of Yoga Chat. And I'm very excited. Today we are talking with Dave, or do you prefer Dave or David? Dave.
Dave.
Dave. Okay. So welcome, Dave. Dave has been a really good yogi for a long time now, so we're gonna listen to his take on his yoga practice um, and see where Dave is at. So, first of all, the two obligatory questions. First, how long have you been practicing yoga, Dave?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to do this and talk about my experience with you and my yoga experience. I've been doing yoga for about 3 years now, maybe a little over 3 years. And I've been working exclusively at Yoga Experience. So you've been my first and only teacher.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, that makes me happy. What initially brought you to yoga?
Yeah, so I came to yoga sort of this weird, like very tumultuous time in my life where I was like both mentally and physically, where like I was having a lot of issues sleeping, a lot of insomnia, but also I hadn't really been able to work out due to some like physical limitations and some medical issues. And so I was really looking to change my expectations with fitness and um, looking for something that would give me movement, but also help some mental health issues too. And so my initial expectations for yoga were very minimal, I would say. And I really knew very little about it coming in. I mean, I remember emailing you and being like, is this something I can do? Pretty sure I didn't have a yoga mat in my first class. I borrowed one. And so it's been this like slow evolution where I've slowly been adding more and more, where I think I added meditation. You used to do that meditation class, which was great.
Yes, yes.
And I did that. And then I added a second class. And now I'm doing it 3 days a week. And the more, the better.
Yeah, and yoga is meant to be done every day. And so when you get to that point where you're doing about 3 times a week, you start to recognize that this is a lifestyle. It
Yeah.
is like it's a daily practice. Whether you do an hour every day or whether you do 5 minutes one day and an hour the next. It doesn't matter. It's just there's some part of the yoga practice that you do every day. You just get to that point, and I think you're there.
I'm excited to be there. I could do another one too, probably.
Cool. That's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to move into the questions that you chose. I send you about 20, 25 questions and asked you to look them over and pick out ones that spoke to you. So let's go with those. So the first one is, has your yoga practice brought you any revelations? I love this
Yeah.
question, by the way.
I heard this quote recently about like practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes improvement. And I think that's like a really
Mm,
good way to
that's good.
describe yoga and the practice of yoga, and also uh, consistency, like how much consistency matters, as we were just sort of talking about. Like I've even in this 3 years, like there's been periods where I've taken breaks or had to, whether willingly or unwillingly. And you can always get back into it, but like I always feel the best when I'm at least going 2 or 3 times a week. Um, and then like for me as a artist, I think that one thing I like had no uh, like sort of real grasp of when I started was like that yoga can really influence other aspects of your life. And so like my art explores some of the same themes that I explore in yoga, is sort of this relationship between like inner and outer, the tension between your inner and outer self, and
Hmm.
sort of this or desire for completeness and wholeness, and those sort of manifest themselves throughout both practices for me.
Yeah, yeah. Anything that sort of once you recognize that you're doing something that goes just beyond the external layer of your
Mhm.
being, then there's no end to the revelations, I think. I've been practicing for, 20 plus years, and I still have these moments of, aha, that's new, that's cool, so,
Well, even
um,
I was thinking even last night we did it. There were a couple like just small poses that we did that I'm like, oh, wait, I don't think I've done that before, just like how
yeah,
moving into transitioning can change and things like that. And
right,
um,
right.
it allows you to be surprised, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. Cool. Okay, let's move to your next question, which is, has your practice changed because of the pandemic, and how?
I think the pandemic has really created a lot of peaks and a lot of troughs in practice
Mhm.
as we've entered our second or third year of it. Um, I, I've had a lot of ups and downs, but I think I've learned a lot where like the idea, like I believe that yoga really should be done in person, not only for the community aspect, but the being in a space that's set up that's conducive to be present
Mhm.
is really something I think we probably took for granted before, where
Yeah.
um, at home there's just so many distractions and so many things competing for your time and so many things competing for like sort of your unconscious time even um, but so I've really like I fell out of it for a while and then coming back. Now, this is the first time where I've been able to do 3 days a week, which has been really nice. And so I'm grateful for that. And
Yeah.
also, like, we've had 3 studios in the
Yeah.
time, or two
Don't I know
studios,
it?
but basically, different spaces lead to different practices.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, each space has its own energy, and each class has a different energy depending on who shows up, right?
Yeah.
So, because different people bring in different energies. So that's all a part of the practice. I think it's all part of our evolvement into dealing with the world. When we're on a little screen like this, it's like we're not dealing with the
It's
world.
all about yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you get into a space where you have to absorb the energies of everybody, that's part of the practice, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's move to your last one. Do you feel yoga is a physical, a mental, or a spiritual practice?
Well, I'm going to say it's all three. It really, I do like looking back at the last 3 years, like I really find that it is the intersection of all three of them. But at any given point, you are pulled in one direction or another. When I started, I think I was much more interested in the spiritual aspect because I remember there was a time where I was even more into the meditation than the yoga.
Hmm.
Um, and then now I'm really into the physical aspect of progressing form and just really finding my own progress and finding my like what's new, what like for me, progress is very incremental and very small, at least flexibility wise. And that's just a fact of my body.
That's just it. Yeah, that is your challenge.
Yes, and it will always be my challenge. But
Yeah.
I find it interesting that even in the middle of a practice, it can change too, where like you can be either really gung ho or really not, and like uh, halfway through you realize, okay, I can get through this physically, or like it becomes more of a mental, like focusing on just being present, or you know it can evolve and I don't
Hmm.
think I realize I think as I've gotten more into it, it's gotten more nuanced for me.
Hmm. And don't you feel too, like when you're practicing, um, like you said, there's always this potential of shift.
Hmm.
Whatever you brought to your practice in that moment is going to come out,
Yeah, I mean a
no
lot
matter
of
what.
my intentions are around like just being present and like it's like for this hour and for me, a lot changed when I stopped wearing my watch in practice.
Mm. Oh,
Um,
that's huge.
I think that was like a big, because there's no time, right? Like time is, I know we have a clock in the back, but like you're not thinking about, okay, I have 15 minutes left, or I'm, you know, X amount through this workout on my watch, right? It's okay, I'm here for this hour. It's going to go how it goes, right?
Yeah.
And so I,
Might as well just surrender to it, right?
yeah, surrender. Yeah, it's the big surrender experiment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole reason I don't have a clock, where anybody can see it.
Oh,
Because
I'm all for
same
that.
reason I
Yeah.
same reason I don't have mirrors. Because
Yes.
as soon as we look in a mirror, our ego jumps up, right? And we're judging or we're analyzing or we're criticizing or whatever, right? So
Yes.
the whole purpose of your practice is to go inward and not be, focused on anything external. So no clocks, no mirrors. That's my rules.
That's good. That'll be consistent no matter what.
Yes, yes. No matter what studio we end up in, right?
Exactly. No, I'm very grateful for. Well, I also think just like it's comforting to see familiar faces in that space too, right? As that has
Right.
evolved, um, you know, I'm encouraged to see new people coming in, and people continuing their practice, even a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's some people that have been with me for teens and teens of years.
That's great.
Yeah. So anything else in closing, Dave, that you want to share?
No, I just really appreciate all of the work that you put in, and what you've done to make this positive for me, and also just for us as a community. I think it often goes unsaid, but I do really appreciate it.
Well, it's absolute pleasure on my part, and I thank you for being such a dedicated yogi. Thanks for this interview, and we'll see you in class soon, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Namaste, Dave.
Namaste.